look for a short, right? So we have, this is the zero line that needs to go down here, but we have the 10 threshold, which is over here. Now this is where we started looking at the 2 hour for the 10 threshold when it kind of breaks above there or rejects off there. Um, the next move would be looking for a 2 hour blue moon, right? Which is this right here. So we're just going to continue to kind of like check this out. The coins that I'm going to look at when we look at these are going to be Doge, Solana, River. Those will give us three different prices. Solana is a pretty bigger coin at the 100 plus mark. Doge is the 10 cent mark, and then River kind of operates in the in between, but it has a price action like Doge, but massive, way bigger moves from that. So we want to kind of like hone in on that. So that way we're kind of like working the section of like understanding when you're taking a concept into a trade section. You're not always um, just going with the same thing that you've been doing. Otherwise, you might end up in a bad situation. So here, we like to see a pullback that has volume that's actually higher than normal. This didn't quite break the 10 threshold, so that just for us it just means it's not going to have as big as a pullback as um, most people would think on there. So that's where this type of pullback would just let us know that eventually we're probably going to go into a rally or another bounce from here, right? So let's see here. And so far, it's kind of playing off of that. And we're stuck in between this little channel here. So we're kind of bouncing off the bottom here. And that would be the decision on how it holds. I expect it to come off this bottom here and kind of like start to move to the top side. So 2 hour pullback there. If you're right now, we're just looking at the bigger side of it, so we can understand the market as a sentiment and the momentum, right? So it's a way to kind of just let us know, like, all right, if the 2 hours breaking down, um, we're not going to be looking into long positions. So the 2 and the 4 hour are the ones you're going to kind of be using for that type of thing. So if I go back here, I'm pretty sure the 4 hour RSI has a move down, and that printed at about 1400. So let me see here. What I mean by that, if I take a look here, and you guys can do this because your time frames would be a little different. My time is set to UTC. Yours might be set a little different, but we can see right here that this printed right here. We're not going to see this heading down until it prints. So that would have printed about 1400 hours, right? Which would put us in this zone here. So I'm going to make this purple. This is simply the 4 hour down, right? So when that prints like that, that just lets us know at that time we're going to be in a situation where um, it's going to be the sentiment or the momentum for today is more in the downside, and the market conditions as we move forward are going to detail how much that gives up, right? And what I mean by that is I'm going to put 4 hour RSI down. It just means that once you learn the basics and you start to see the volume and how it um, creates the movement of how far it goes down, how far it goes up, that'll allow you to start to see this when the market starts to change, right? Right now, we're kind of in a bearish market. In the next month or two, we'll go into a mild market where there's people be slowly working their way into May, June, July push. And then as we start to move towards September, when we'll start getting into more of a bullish type scenario. But you be able to learn by watching just the number one thing, which is volume is king, right? So right now you always hear us talk about volume is king and confirmation of value, right? So it doesn't matter what trade you want to do, the volume is going to dictate um, how much that actually is going to be happening right at that time, right? So this we can see here that this right here, if I go to this printed candle that's happened today at 1400 hours, then I can go back here I can see that that 1400 hours was in this zone here. And then if I go to my, let's say my 10 minute, and we'll find 1400 hours today. And we'll take a look at what we call a cluster, right? So yeah, right in here, this is our 1400. So we can see here that during that time, once we got that signal, which is basically right here, it's just letting us know that the 4 hour is now headed down, right? So I think the other day, I think it was Joe, where somebody said, okay, well, how do I short that? Or I don't know. I think, oh no, it's Joey C. So remember the other day, Joey, I was talking about once we have a downward move, then we would be shorting. Yeah, you short the next jump, right? So this is exactly what we were talking about yesterday. And then if you miss that, confirmation is the double move, right? So there's move down, and then you basically grab that next top right there. The exact same thing we were talking about yesterday. But this is all because once you kind of see where your momentum is, then it's like you're already seeing what's happening. So now you're just set up to what are my next steps to take advantage of this, right? It's really just execution on what you see out there and then building off of that, right? And this all just comes with 4 hour down, 2 hour blue moon, right? So kind of on a short position, the one thing that we're looking for, and they both happened at the same time. They came out at the 1400 hour, and that's where we were looking for our positions in here, right? It's just a very simple 4 hour down move. Just lets us know the sentiment and the volume's on its way down. From there, all you're really looking for is your entry point, right? Now, a lot of times, this is where we have these down here. We can have, and we talked about this literally yesterday. I like to see. Remember, I was talking about how like what I would like to see is the next green moon, and then short after that into the blue moon. Remember, and that's our blue moon right there. So this would be basically where we would be looking to take that position right there. So that's how it plays out. I mean, this literally, this I think we talked about this yesterday, right? Pretty much right when we were getting off, right, Joe? And you got don't forget you should have your futures trading cash in there. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you have like 30 days to set up your limit orders. But yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like the reason why you have that, you can just pull, make your trades, is because that's like, it's even though it's real, it turns into real cash. It also it's like it's not you putting 500 go I made a bad trade, right? So that'll be yeah yeah. Yeah, so what you want to do is let me slide over to BitNext, right? So two things that you want to do when you're doing the trade that you want to get set up, right? So the first thing is you slide up here. It says isolated. Yours should always be on isolated. It normally starts you off at cross. So just slide over to isolated so that way it's only using what you confirm inside of your future side. All right, once you have that, the right side is your leverage, right? Now, if you set a limit order with a certain leverage, and then you go to buy and you try to do a different type of leverage, it won't let you do that until you cancel out the limit order because the limit order already has a leverage attached to it, right? So you always want to make your adjustment there on your leverage side. Then from there, pretty much what I do is just go limit, and whatever you have down here, you just would slide it over to what you want. So let's say if we're doing right now we're doing a $900 bag, right? So we'd be doing most of the time we're going to do about 20% of that, so about 200 on those trades, and just work those. So we'll always, it's kind of like what I do is if I have 1,000 in there or whatever, and I'm doing 200, I just mark down my numbers. So my first trade, I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna do 20% of my first trade, and then obviously that leaves 800. Then the next time you go in there, it's like, oh, I need to be trading at, you know, 27% because that'll be equivalent to, you know what I'm saying? And then just kind of write that down. So when you start making your trades, you know exactly where your percentages are, and you're making your slides in there. All right, yeah. So let's. Yeah, so let's say you have 800 in there, right? And you do 200, right? So if you have that in there, the 50% mark would be 400. So you'd be using 25% on your first trade. When you make that trade, if it stays current and you go to do another trade, let's say you find another coin while you're going along, now you only have 600 in the available margin, right? So prior to that, I know that at that point, if I do a 50% on that, it's 300. But if I do a 40 or 35%, that'll be my 200 again. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. You just want to be where, you know, you're like, all right, so the next time I make a trade, it'll be 35%. And then if you, yeah. No, no, just, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's say if, yeah, and if you take, like, you know, a lot of times if you take, let's say you hit your stop loss or whatever, and it's like, all right, I'm down to whatever, right? You already have, like, all right, here's the percent I need to do. And then that way, when you're looking for the trade, and if you find one, you're not like, okay, well, how much is, you know, you're not sitting there like piecing together, you know, what percent you need. You know what I'm saying? And once you do it a few times, you'll just get to the point where you'll just be like, oh, I'm at 900. I need 32. I'm at this. I need 24. Right? It just becomes natural because you're doing the same numbers over and over and over. But that's pretty much it on that, right? So you just want to make sure you're isolated. You have your percents in there, and then yeah, your TPs are on there, and then these are all adjustable by dragon as well. So you see here, I had other orders here that should have been set up. Now that it's dropping, I'm not going to get these orders. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to X those out, and then I have my stop loss here. You can just drag your stop loss where you want it. You don't have to like go back to this thing here. You can literally just drag it to where you want. Same thing with profits. So if you have a profit area down here and you want it, you know, you're seeing it trying to run, just grab it and pull it down even more. Yeah, keeps it simple. All right, we're gonna click here, and this is the way I like to close, just so you kind of like see. This is a little bit more on the average. So let's say you're closing out, and you say the 100%. Slide over here to price and go to last price, and then try to close on that. And what that does for you, it puts you in a situation where it's closing at like a limit close at the current price. And then if you have to pull it down slightly to close it out, what it'll do is it'll stop it from closing market, which is a massive range on the candle, right? Top to bottom of that candle, where you want it to be more in a range area. So that'll save you, like when you close that, that'll have it where you're earning more profit off your close because you're taking a specific price, right? That's about yeah. I mean, I would say that's about the most that we really need on that side there. That's about normal. Those are the kind of like the tidbits I would say um, we'd focus on. Closing with that last price is always kind of critical because it enhances the take home instead of having a wide market array. Move this back up a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's go back over to Doji. Okay. So for us, I mean, this is pretty much, we were literally last night, we were talking about when this goes into a short position, how would we enter? And I was talking to Joey C. I was like, well, once that happens, I like to see another green moon, which is right there. And then that top is where I would, you know, that push is where I'd be looking to enter off of that area up there. So you can kind of use your 10-minute and say, okay, that's the, I'm going to make that move and just go by the next 10-minute RSI. And when that next 10-minute RSI starts to head down, you can see down here, and then just make your entry in that section there. That's a pretty solid entry from that level. So once again, just kind of recap. When we're doing a short, we're looking for the 4-hour down, which we got at 1400 hours. We're looking for a blue 2-hour blue moon, which we got at the same time, 1400 hours. And then the entry is basically going in and deciding, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes looking for that pump side. Either way, I want to see one more moon, right? And then once that moon hits, then on that 10-minute, I want to catch that RSI when it starts to head down again, right? So that puts me somewhere in here in these sections, all depending on where you get in, but it's a pretty solid entry from that point. So that's kind of the steps that we're looking into right now. We were kind of watching this last night, and we were talking about that's how we would enter that. So that's exactly how we played out right here. 2-hour moon, blue moon, 4-hour RSI down, right? At that point, the entry is simply allowing a 10-minute green moon to come back in for the final pump, and then as soon as that 10-minute RSI starts to head down, right? And you can also notice on the moon indicator, you can watch the volume as well. As soon as that volume starts to go down, that is where you want to make that entry point right there. And that's pretty much the steps to the short. So let's see. I think we'll do the 4-hour. So when we're posting, this is another reason why we're 4-hour RSI short. 2-hour blue moon. Entry after next green moon. Next 10-minute. And that's how we would play that right there. So that's the basic steps that we can kind of put into play here and start watching this as it comes across. Now, this was the short that we put in here earlier. Daily's bending. Yeah, so we're just building volume here. It's a nice little, and this is where market conditions are going to kind of once you start seeing how it plays out, the market conditions are going to start to become very second nature to you, because you'll see these pullbacks, and then you'll realize that it doesn't pull back as much as it was last week or 2 weeks ago, right? So then you start to notice that the volume and the market is starting to become a little more solid, right? Which is kind of what's happening right now over the last week. We're seeing short positions, but we're not seeing them actually break out. You see they pull down, they bounce, and then they kind of they go sideways. And then even on this move here, it's staying within its guidelines, right? It's staying within its channel here. So it's starting to build here, and that's just because the way people trade is when something goes sideways, like it was going sideways for a while on that 10-minute there, right? Because it's what we were looking at last night. When it was consolidating, we noticed that it was pushing up, and it wouldn't break this resistance here, right? So then you see the volume come down, smaller push, and then people just at that point there's no volume there, right? So what they have to do is they got to have a relief where they bring it down to where we're at right now, which is the bottom support again, right? Now this is where, people are looking to buy, and we can tell what's going to happen here because we should be getting some type of bounce here, which I'm seeing on the chart. We're staying level at 9 cents. So this is probably where we're going to see some fighting down here. But more than likely, it's like I say, we know what should be happening. If we don't get the same result as what we're expecting, right, then we know that we're starting to either build momentum the right way up or the wrong way down. This seems to be chopping it up with the volume. You can see how far the volume dropped here on the 5 or 10 minute right here, all the way down to the 30. So this is where a lot of times we'll look, as you hear us talk about the 5 minutes down to the 30 line or something like that, on the moon indicator. It's just letting you know that the volume has hit a low, right? So normally when it hits something like a negative 30, that's normally a bottom, right? So more than likely here, we're probably going to be seeing this hold on to itself and hover around these lower areas, about 897 area. But this looks like it's going to feed into it, right? So right now, market-wise, volume is starting to look like it's going to hold its position, right? So this kind of goes with us trading with the looking at this, going, okay, yeah, we're building momentum into this market right now. So we're pretty good here. Let me see. So for us, let me take a look at the 1 hour. So for us, it's the next move for us would be like waiting for a 1 hour green moon to come through here, and yeah, I mean it's holding right here. So this is where we're expecting, like at the end of April, we're expecting some solid volume here to start moving in the right direction again. So far, I mean, it looks pretty good. So when you're setting these up, it's kind of going back to like um, waiting for a trade to happen, right? I'm seeing a lot of you guys when I'm talking to you during the day. It's You're starting to be patient. You're starting to work out steps, and you're starting to kind of find your groove. Like, all right, where's my trade? What am I getting into? What am I waiting for? Creating the strategy one, right? How to find the trade that we want to get into. And then strategy two, it's the entry is going to be, it's always going to be a 5 or 10 minute moon reset, whether it's up or down. And that's just to protect you from any spikes or anything like that. So it's a pretty simple format right now. Let me see here. Can you guys see my chart? Yeah. Oh, you're only looking at Bitnex. All right, hold on. Yeah, just Trading View. You guys have you got Trading View now in front of you, right? Yeah, this should be Trading View. Yeah, 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 yeah. So this is what we were talking about the other day, like watching the volume. So you see here, this is the lines that we talk about, the moon volume, right? So right now, and when we go across, we can see these lower lines in the 30s down here. That's on the 1 hour. That's like a bottom, a heavy bottom here. So that's something we can look back and say, okay, the heavy bottom kind of came in, last week, and we've seen that big heavy dip. That right there is basically letting us know it's holding its position, right? So you see how this way down at the 30. Now when we slide over and we take a look at the 10 minute, you see how the 10 minute, those big pullbacks there, they're hitting about the 30 area, right? 30 area is pretty much a bottom area, right? So even though it looks like this should be pulling back even further, you can see it already starting to curl up off that bottom section there, you see? So volume wise on the market overall is starting to uh, show up, right? So this is where, when we start to get into the situations of um, reading a market or seeing how it's playing out, this is what allows us to kind of like see that in real time, right? And then for us would just be like, all right, we have a move down. Now what we're waiting for is nice little liquidity grab here, but now what we got to see is like on the bounce that comes out of here, there's going to be another pullback that happens in there. If it maintains this level, right, that's just letting us know that the market overall is starting to actually um, get back to a half decent place, right? If you look over the last couple months, like everything that was like going long, I mean, it literally just went back to its beginning. Like it just fell right back, right? Which is great because we love to short the market, but if you're, it just if you're a long position, it's like wow, we went from a dollar 36 on XRP to a dollar 50, and then right back to a dollar. The big dip was 118. Worked our way back up to 150. Went back to 130. Right now it's fighting its way back up. Here we're starting to see where the volume is finally um, they're starting to move the needle a little bit. Not a lot, but it's the beginning of like, okay, we're starting to see some life here, right? And this is how it's good to pay attention to because as you continue to trade, you're still using the same steps. It's just going to be what changes in the market condition will help you like um, get into longer trades, right? See the curves a lot easier, right? This is all volume, right? That's it. That's the biggest thing you want to learn here at the end of the day is that volume controls this entire market, right? And right now we're just waiting for our patterns to type of hit. So for us, if we're going long, you know, we're going to need that 4 hour to um, head up. I know there's a 2 hour student trade off the RSI right here, which would be having the 2 hour break the 20 line. And then we'd like to see a retest. And then that works its way into the 4 hour, right? So kind of like having a nice one wave push, right? Then the second pullback, the wave is about 50% pullback on what just happened, and then the third wave is normally the biggest wave, which is our 4 hour push, right? Over the last 3 months, that wave or those moves have been decent. Like they move, but they're not like, they're not moving like they should. So we should see as we start to go over the next couple weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, that should start to play out, right? When we'll watch this on Doge here to see this next move on Doge, how it breaks up, the pullback if it stays, so what I'm talking about when I say pullback is the Elliott waves, right? Elliott wave one is a push out. Elliott wave two is normally 50 to 80% of a pullback of the original wave one, and the third wave is normally 50% higher than the first wave, right? So this is how you can also kind of like see the volume in a market. So when this 2 hour breaks up to the upside and we see a pullback into the 4 hour that then breaks up as well, if the pullback is in the zone of 50%, 40% area, then we have a decent volume in the trade. If it pulls back 80% and then starts to bounce, then we're still in a very bearish market, and we need to always be aware that taking profits or having those targets have to stay consistent with the 25-30% area because it's the market is not giving you more than that, right? My mom used to say you can't get blood from a turnip, right? So you have to play inside those rules. Now you'll notice the difference once the market starts to change because the pullbacks will be more in the 40-50% range. Then you can start adjusting where you create. That's where you get a little more bigger bag handed, right? And allow those profits to just go and say, okay, I'm going to take 30%, but now I'm going to double my bag or triple my bag to get the money I want, because now I'm seeing that the volume is giving me creating less risk for me, right? More volume, higher targets, so the 30% becomes a lot easier to hit, which means you should be literally striking 9 out of 10 of your trades at 30%. And the way to make money there is simply double or triple the bag that you're normally trading, keeping the same target that you've been working on for the last month or 2 or 3 months, and setting up your strategy, right? Strategy one is the trade. It's going to always be your live trade, right? So whatever that is, if it's going to be the 4-hour RSI headed up and getting a 4-hour green moon, and then going and waiting for a 1-hour green moon, and then going into your second strategy, which is your entry, which is green moon or the following green moon on the 10-minute, right? So that's why, when we go over it, we're always talking about the same setup over and over and over and over, so that just becomes just how you trade, right? It's a very systematic style, right? That's what you do. And when you do it over and over and over, you're going to get the same results, and you're going to see the results. So you will understand and expect what's coming, right? Cause and effect. Once you do the cause, you get an effect. You do it over and over, then you'll start to see volume changes in markets, and you will realize when you can increase your bags and take your 30% and allow that to be easier ways to double and triple your profits without any extra risks for yourself, because you're staying at that 30% target, right? That makes sense? Yeah, I mean, is that Joey, that making sense? Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like here we have our 4 hour down on Doge, right? And this is where posting is important, right? And that's why it just comes down to when we have everybody posting. This is kind of the confidence side, right? Where when everybody gets to the posting situation, right? And you can see when they're posting it, it allows everybody to kind of like just see what's happening, right? So this is where we want to be, where we're setting up and we're posting 4 hour moves, right? Because that's going to be key. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a lot of guys that are like, they'll end up popping up here in the next couple weeks, but this is all new classes, right? So the new boot camps are firing up, the new course is firing up for the next 8 months, right? So this is where we see the beginning of the foundation, right? It's just basically just getting where everybody can be involved, right? It's not that hard to sit there and have your RSIs, right? And RSIs are simple to set. You just go to your chart, you go to your RSI, you right click on it, set an alert, right? Make sure you're on the right time frame, right? A lot of times, if you want to get an alert ahead of time, let's say I'm waiting for the 4 hour RSI to head up, right? So I would just go to my 3 hour, because I want a little bit of heads up, and then I just go to my 3 hour and I put an alert. I put add an alert. You right click on one of those lines. Top of it says add alert on stochastic RSI. You guys see that? And then you click it, and then it should be already set up to crossing, right? And then once that happens, you go down on the left side, you find this little thing called message, and you have a little drop arrow. Click it, and there's a little thing called alert name, and you just name it, right? So this is going to be Doge, This is going to be the 3 hour, and this is going to be my RSI, right? And I put cross, and that's it. And then I apply it. So now what's going to happen is I create it. Now every single time that I get a moment where the RSI crosses on the 3 hour, I can then go back and just look at it. Now I'm waiting for the 4 hour, right? And that's where I can say, okay, where's the 4 hour at, right? I can see where that's set up, and now I can start to really like put my trades together, the ideals that I want to trade, and kind of like slide that in there. So that's kind of like the benefit of having that time to get the alert and then be like, all right, I'm gonna check that out in an hour or two, right? It just allows you to have that time. So if you're doing the 4 hours, just set all your alerts on your 3 hours. So that way you have an hour, 2, 3 hours to like, get yourself settled in, see what's going on, post what's going on, and just keep everybody aware of like what's happening that you're seeing, and then that'll basically create where people can get more. You'll be more confident because you're like, okay, they see it too. You know what I'm saying? So it constantly just it builds a community of same minded views, right? We're all looking at the same thing, so then we can all make the same decision and make the same trades, right? That's really what it is, because it's right now you're still having emotional trading, right? While you're learning how to take that first step, and that's why a lot of times it's like, okay, we're making the steps to move forward, right? And it's whether I tell people, say, listen, if you're doing $1,000 bag normally, start off with $100, right? Everything that you do is going to be 30% leverage or 45% leverage, somewhere in that zone, and your stop loss would be 30, and your target is 30, right? And that's how you go. So 33 cent to 33 leverage to 45, right? Depending on the coins. Doge, I like to trade at about 45% leverage. So like right now, I'm gonna be getting into a long position on Doge because we're hitting that bottom, and like I said, the volume isn't swinging away from 9 cents, right? So it's not showing me that it's weak. It's showing me that it's holding this zone. So this is where I'll be playing that 9 cent entry into the long position. But I'll do a 45x, and the stop losses are always, you can kind of like put your stop loss 30, 35%. 35 is fine, do 35, and your target 30, 30%, right? So that's where you want to kind of hit your zone. So when all that happens and you're seeing that happen, you're getting the results, right? You can kind of like see it play out all the time and just redo it, right? So here we're just going to be tracking this, trade to what's coming up. But once you get everybody posting, and the same thing, it's 4 hour RSI, 4 hour moons, right? It just allows everyone, when they pop in, they don't have to kind of like, you know, they already have information. So what I'm talking about, guys, if you're kind of like seeing what we're saying, is this, right? So if we go to a chart, right, there's a very simple thing. There's a indicator called a stochastic RSI, right? And on the stochastic, there's a time frame, right? We would use the 3 hour time frame where you set your alert, right? Click it, and all you're going to do is set the alert on there and just add your alert. Now, what we post is basically when the 4 hour ends up bending back up, right? We would just go into Discord and we'll just post, right? And all you do is you post a coin, right? So if I'm doing Doge, I put Doge 4 hour RSI up, right? And that just alerts everybody who's in the Discord or who's seeing that Doge is starting to make a decision, right? Now we know that our long, right, is basically, if we look at our trades that we want to do, depending on what trade we're doing, right? So let's see here. So we take a look here. Let me see on the 15-minute long trade, right? So the 15-minute long trade is strategy number one, right? 15-minute long trade with momentum, right? So step one, 4 hour RSI up and a green moon. Step two, 1 hour green moon for value, right? Step three, so those two steps there cover our strategy one. Strategy two is our entry. It's just on the next 10-minute green moon or 10-minute green moon reset. So that's a long that's coming up. So the two things that I need from Doge to give me this long is I need the 4 hour on the RSI headed up, and then what I need here is I need a green moon, right? So for right now it's a current green moon, and what we mean by a green moon is right here. You can see that little green circle right there. We're waiting for that is to um, be in the situation. Now currently it has not changed to a blue moon, right? And this is where I'm talking about. Notice here that when you look at this, and this is something you guys will start to see, this is something we didn't really focus on over the last couple years, um, was kind of like breaking this down. And I think a lot of conversations that I had with people, this is the one thing that I think overall over the last 4 or 5 years that people kind of missed was the understanding that market conditions change, right? So even though this is pulling down and we have the 4 hour coming down, we have the 2 hour coming down, right? It's a short position, right? But if I looked at my 4 hour session here, right, I can see that there's a gap here, right? And that gap is pretty big from the 4 hour, orange line and 4 hour blue line, right? So what that tells me when you start looking at this, that orange line there, is it's telling me that it's probably in a scenario that it's probably not going to um, hit. Probably not going to get a blue moon. See what I'm saying? That blue line is not really too close to that section there. The volume is still there's a pretty big gap in between there, right? Pretty big gap there, right? And that's basically, for me, that's just kind of like a sign that I'm watching, because right now the volume is at this level and the blue line is traveling down in this section down here, right? So we have this gap here. It's not really close enough for me to be like, yeah, we're gonna get a blue moon out of that right now, right? So I need to see the next 4 hour candle, which shows up at 2200, I think. Yeah, so we're about 45 minutes away from the next candle that we're going to see here. Now, to kind of see a prelude to this, I could slide down, take a look at the 2 hour, right? And I see I got my 2 hour moon here. The volume's in this section here. And I can say, okay, we got our blue moon, but remember what I talk about and we got our, here's a 3 hour blue moon too. So what I talk about sometimes is that when you get a moon, right, you'll hear me say trade into the moon, right? What I'm talking about, this is actually a good example here, is that what I'm talking about is when you're trading into the moon, right, the moon is supposed to give a certain movement, right? There's supposed to be a pop there. There's supposed to be some type of like, um, bounce or dip that comes with the moon, because the moons are like, how to explain it, like it's signaling a big move, right? So when this moon hit, right, now I can look at these moons. I can now see that the 2 hour and the 3 hour moon hit together, right? So if I look at my chart, that should have caused a pretty big pull down, right? But it didn't. So now I'm kind of like, okay, it's not falling as like it should. It's not pulling back like it should. So that means as we start to move forward, I'm more inclined to say to myself, okay, as we start to build momentum here, the longs that are coming are probably going to be in pretty good positions to play, because we're not really like, people are holding this position here. They're holding this support line pretty well. And that's something you can start seeing, is like start to see how that plays off. Like the moon's hit, but there's not a lot of like a price adjustment. Does that make sense? The moon should cause a certain amount of like price movement, and if we don't see that, then it lets us know like that the strength of that move, right? So right now, I mean, we're just waiting. If we're, if you're in a short, you're in your short position. You still have your short. If you're looking for the long position, we're just waiting for the transition here, right? So one of the transitions is minimum. We need to see a 1 hour green moon here, which we don't have. So we'd be waiting for that to come around. And once we get those type of positions in there, that's when we can start seeing the change in momentum to the upside, right? Um, and just studying, like take a look at your moon indicator as you start to see the price action, and see how it acts to the price, right? And that's really the in between information that we didn't talk about a lot before. Is just using to learn to see the moon indicator as your confirmation of what's happening, right? Like it's like looking at this is what we looked at last night. This is where we were talking about the 1 hour. You see how the 1 hour starts to head up here off of a blue moon, and that section there should have normally this would have created a section here where we would think that we're getting a green moon, right? It would be in this section here, and when it headed down and it didn't get a green moon, that's an indication where you can say, as you start to get better at this, you'll start to see and go, oh, you know what? That didn't happen. So what you would do there is, it's like we keep saying, if we know what's supposed to happen and it doesn't happen, then we know what will happen, right? So if we've seen that and we apply that to the chart, you're going to see that movement right there, that was an early warning to the short position. You see how that played out right there? See, these are confirmations that you'll start to like piece together inside of whatever puzzle you're doing, right? It's like find your trade. Find your trade is however you trade, whatever support resistance, it's all the same philosophies. Try to get the highest, top of the resistance if you're shorting. If you're going long, put your entries at the bottom of the lowest channels, so that you have the best entries. That way, this right here would be, if you're getting an entry here, would be setting your price in that 8958 area, somewhere in this little, whatever this pull down is here. But it's looking like that's kind of like the section there. But that's where you'll start to piece together these little tidbits that you'll be able to see if you're studying the moon indicator, and after you kind of plot out your support resistance, you're waiting for the volume, you start to see everything swinging around, and then you notice the moon indicator says, well, that's not, there's not enough volume for that to happen. That's a prelude into what's going to happen. And then once we've seen that, we already know that there's a bounce coming, right? That's that pullback that we see here on that first move, and then we get our 4 hour moon, which pops up in here and gives us that short again. So these are little things as we start to like watch these trade live and kind of go through there, we'll be able to kind of see those things manifest. Other than that, man, it's just posting, right? The posting of the 4 hour RSI up and down, right? And you can post the 4 hour, that's the ones we want to see. And you can also post the 2 hours, right? The 2 hours just let people know like, oh, this thing is starting to move in a certain way. The other thing that we want to post are the moons, right? So the moon positions are going to get us to where when you post the moons, it just allows us to know what's coming up. So we want to post 4 hour moons, 1 hour moons, but those are the ones that we're going to use for keying off trades, right? So here would be the next time you see a 1 hour moon on Doge, 1 hour on Solana, those are the things that you could post. And then that just lets people know that it's starting to build momentum, and then they can slide over and start to look for the 3 and 4 hour moons, which would basically be the creation of the next long position that we're looking for, right? We're not going to get too much action right now because we're heading into the Asian market. So normally they kind of go sideways and pull down. So right now there's just not a lot of value in that Asian market right now. But these are the things that as we go forward, when you're posting, everybody's posting the same thing. It just is confirmation to everybody and to you that it's making the moves that we're looking for. And then the more people that can execute the trades and get into those trades can bring confirmation to, like, yeah, this is happening. Like I seen today, Mad Max posted when somebody jumped in a trade. I think he posted that there was no value, right? So it's starting to like it's starting to trickle down that people are starting to understand. Oh, right here, there was no value in confirmation on the 1 hour. I think that was for you, Joe. Right? Yeah. But see that's the beauty of it, right? It's like, oh, right. But see the mhm. And that's where, kind of like put a sticky note. Some guys used to do this where once you have a trade, kind of like what it is here, they just take this and write this on a sticky note, right? 15-minute long trade with momentum, right? They put 4 hour RSI up, green moon, 1 hour green moon for value, right? Entry, 10-minute green moon reset. Um, sometimes what happens is you end up getting in a position where that moon is there. Now you're just waiting for the moon reset. But like I said, market conditions are going to change. Right now, we're in a very slow market, right? And what happened is you and I think Beneco were waiting on a 10-minute moon reset. But during that time, the 1 hour then went blue. Volume fell out. That's why it took so long to hit that moon. See what I'm saying? So a lot of times you put that sticky note and just kind of like remind yourself, like, all right, the one thing that I have to have here is my volume, right? That's why I say that we always constantly cover the volume side. It's like the one thing I got to do is I got to trade with the 1 hour moon, right? And just by checking that 1 hour green moon, oh, it's blue shit. It's not a good trade. No, but that also, like, you remember, like, it's keep in mind as we're starting to go through it and say, okay, what's supposed to happen, right? When it doesn't, then we know what will. So as you go along in 2 3 months, you'll be tracking these type of trades, and then you'll be like, oh, this is a short, and then boom, and the next thing you know, 60% on the short instead of a 60% loss. But that's like, that comes down the road as you start to realize, once you start to see what you're waiting for and that doesn't happen and it starts to reverse, you will already see the reversal because you've already mapped out the strategy of what you're waiting for the long. And when that doesn't happen, there's only one thing it can do. It's the opposite. And that comes with time, right? So but what I liked it because, this is where, all the new guys are coming in, and this is, going through their classes, and it's like they're able to see, you post you're getting in. He says, hey, there's no value, right? It's like, it's so, it's one thing when I'm doing it. It's more like, it just seems different. But when other students are doing it, it's like, oh shit, right? It just lets me know that everybody is starting to um, see the patterns, right? They're starting to walk their strategies through, right? And then it becomes second nature. Right now, you're in the first, 4 to 6 weeks, it's just getting the habits done, right? Because we got, most of the time everybody has bad habits, right? So now what we're doing is that we have to just build in the right habits and then just grow from there, right? And we're starting to see that. So now what we want to do is, this whole week here is we're going to just focus on getting the post on getting the 4 hour RSIs, the moons, looking at the 2 hour shorts while this is happening, so that we can see how volume is changing, and then that'll put it into where we start to understand market conditions, right? Because we're pretty set here on trades. We have a 4 hour high leverage trade We have a 15-minute, or I mean a 15-minute high leverage that we're still critiquing. We got a 15-minute long trade, which is a normal trade into the 4-hour section. We got these 2-hour, 4-hour RSI long trade, and we got a momentum 4-hour trade, right? So all those trades are perfect. Now we're just working into how we're seeing the volume and market condition, which will basically help you understand as you start to move forward down the road how those things change and how you can then increase profits on that. But now we have our long trades. Now we got to work on the short trades, right? And then from there, we'll have within the next 3 weeks, everyone will be like, when you post something, everyone will know. And then everybody has, a 4-hour up with a 4-hour moon. That's a trade for someone doing a high leverage 15, a regular 15, a regular 4-hour, right? So there's 3 to 4 different trades off that one alert. So it makes it a very consistent thing to kind of do just by people posting that. And we haven't even found coins yet. Right now we're just focusing on Solana, Doge, and River, right? We'll see posts that come up. I know there's other coins out there that people will be looking at, and we'll be able to look at a coin and say, okay, does that coin, does it move well enough to, consider that a tradable coin? If not, then we just get rid of that coin and say, okay, put it on the do not trade list, right? Sometimes trades they don't move enough percentages to be considered worth trading, and you have to, you kind of move them to the do not trade list because they don't move well. You know what I mean? Which when we find one, we'll cover that. But other than that, man, I think um, everybody's slowly starting to get in there. Right now, we're just going through. For a Wednesday, it's kind of been slow today. I think I was talking to a couple other guys that were trading, and they were like, "Man, I haven't even traded today." So there's a lot of guys that are kind of couldn't find a trade today, right? Because it was just so level, And then that's why we seen the trade all of a sudden the short came in because it couldn't move for the last 14 hours. So it just created that moment there. But that's where we see in the 2-hour trade. And literally, I was just talking to Joey C about that last night. As soon as we get that 2-hour moon and that 4-hour down, I would short on the next green moon. Right? Played out exactly like we literally just talked about last night. So that's just as we start to build there, those are trades that Joey's going to get into because he's seen it, he was on it, but he's just getting used to the new side of it, right? So everything's pretty much playing out the way we're kind of anticipating for it to do, and now it just comes down to just start executing on those and just starting to learn market conditions, right? Which is right now we're heading into that scenario where market conditions are going to change a little bit here because we're starting to actually pick up some momentum here. So looking like that's pretty much where we're at. Now, see, this is where, and you're going to see a long is going to be coming up here pretty soon. We should be getting the 2-hour RSI bending up, right? So let me see. The next 2-hour RSI is at 2200. So the next 30 minutes, we should be seeing this RSI here start to actually bend up, right? And that will trigger us to start looking for. That's just confirmation that we can start looking for long trades, right? Which would then go back into. We'll be looking for the 1-hour green moon, right? That's kind of what I'm waiting for right now. Is I'm looking for that 1-hour. Doge green moon, and that'll let me know that the volume's actually in, that we can start trading in the upside. But we're also closing in on a late night Asian market, so normally we're probably going to see that London time, 4 o'clock, 4 a.m., something like that, New York time. So tomorrow looks like we're going to have we're going to see some trades again. Today was kind of like a sideways dead move. I don't know if there was news or something going on, if there was a bunch of stuff on there, but the market just kind of went sideways today. Did he? Yeah, so everybody. I mean, hold on, what's this? It's basically um, you that's what I mean. It's also when you have a war, it's very hard to you know under to anticipate what's going to happen, right? Because you also have, especially with this presidency, you just the media is not the most favorable, right? So even if we're winning the war, they'll say we're not, and so it's just we're just this literally just has to it has to all come to an end before everyone says, oh, this is over, right? Because the media is going to play this as the worst case scenario, where the economics is terrible, we have no gas. We'll be out of gas in the next week. There'll be all types of shit that impossible to happen. But until that actually like moves out of there, which to me, I'm right now. April is we're building into the end of April is going to be very big in crypto and the markets, right? So. This is kind of like on point to whatever the same thing I've been looking at. I've been talking about April 26th for 6 weeks now. It's just basically it's where we're going to start moving towards the markets. So right now, I'm very happy. Like right now, like I said, like you see how this Dogecoin's playing out right now. Like it should be pulling down, but we're going up in price right here, right? So now I can start to say, oh, the markets is starting to show a little more grit here, right? So now we have to be where the shorts that we do, they have to be the ones that we kind of have already set up where we look for the 10 threshold to break, which means it's actually exhausted, and then the big money will actually take profits at that time because you need to be trading with the market makers at that time. Now, prior to this, 2 months ago, we could have shorted the 2 hour without it breaking the threshold because the market was shit and it was playing into the shorts a lot easier and bigger. But right now we're starting to see a shift in the market. Slowly but surely, it's starting to grow. So yeah, shift in the market. But this is where, this is kind of where as we go forward, things like this is something that nobody ever really talks about. It just basically it's like somebody will tell you it's like when they tell you, oh, I see a bull flag or a bull pennant, and that's an average that goes long 50% to 65% of the time, and it's like, yeah, it goes 65% of the time in a bull market. It goes 40% of the time in a regular market and 30% of the time in a shit market. It's meaningless, right? So this is the one thing we're covering now is like market conditions, right? Like the only thing you got to learn is volume is king. When you start to really fucking understand that, it'll just save you so much pain. Because no matter what you see is happening, you can just look at the moon indicator and be like, it's not going to pan out. Like, you just know. You'll be looking right at it like, yeah, there's no money for that. I wish it was, but there's no money for that, right? And then once you start seeing that shit happen, that's when you'll start to like really piece together. Here, like I said, see how this 15-minute we're below that 30 line? Like if you talk to Lucas, this is something when he was in Vegas, I was like, listen, part of the master course that he was taking was understanding when something's fully exhausted, right? You can only sell so much, and eventually you're just done selling. So it doesn't matter how much retail wants to sell. They don't own Doge at this level. This is corporate at this level. This is the bottom. So when you start seeing these 30 levels hit, right? You see how these play out? We know at that point it's a long position, right? So on these particular moments, we're looking for that move that's going to push up on there. See, when they're exhausted in these areas here, then you start looking for like, okay, I'm gonna get that rip coming up here. We're hitting that same bottom again, right? We're gonna get this move here. Let me see how big that move was. Yeah, so Doge has that 4% move build up coming. It's gonna find some momentum, and that's during, you know, the shit markets right now. Let me see. Let me see the 4 hour here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, right now for sure, right? Like the condition right now, right? Until that changes, right? So right now we're the best time to learn how to trade is right now during a shit market, right? Because you're going to start setting boundaries and parameters that are designed to win during the worst fucking time. And then as you do that, you're building the greatest steps ever, right? Most people, when they learn to trade, it's during a bull market or a decent market, right? So they learn parameters and strategies that work when there's money, right? Like bull patterns and bull pennants and all that shit, right? And then when the money disappears, they get fucking destroyed because nothing they've learned they don't there is no adjustment. There's just get fucking filleted. Where you guys are learning from the bottom, like you're starting off with parameters of like real trading, right? The mentality of traders. You're learning how to trade properly, right? No fucking emotion, strictly systematically, strictly mathematically, right? You take what the market, gives you, and you're learning to build and create trades in the worst conditions. So as you move forward and conditions get better, you'll be able to increase profits and lower risk because all you're going to do is you're going to increase your bags and keep the same targets. But targets are hit, you go from winning 6 out of 10 trades to 8 out of 10 trades to 10 out of 10. And now you're just increasing your bag and your 30% goes from being a $150 win to a $300 win to a $600 win to $1,200. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're just waiting for market conditions to start to like. You'll know because when you start off, you're winning 6 out of 10, and then you're winning 7 out of 10, and then you're winning 10 out of 10, and you're realizing that, yeah, yeah, you're lowering all the risk. So you're increasing the bag and lower, right, lowering the target. Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can even lower risk. That's the beauty of it, right? You can lower risk even more while making 3 times as much, which makes no sense. When you, it's like, yeah, yeah, you get $1,000. Yeah, you only need 2 of those trades a week. You see what I'm saying? So that's where, right now, that's what we're really digging into is like just the fundamentals of how to just set up the best possible, the strongest possible trading strategies that you can understand. That's also why we pick up people and then do one-on-ones to how they see the trades or the charts so that they can develop, through their own way of seeing it, how to develop the steps they need to do to ensure whatever they start moving forward, they're doing it the best way possible. And then they also know when they do something wrong, they're like, fuck, I need to do this. And you can make your own adjustment. You're not just out there, winging it. You're just not out there following somebody's trade. You're developing your way of seeing the trade, and you're putting in, you know, safety nets and steps to ensure that you don't make dumb mistakes, right? You're eliminating your bad trades. If you just like think about it, if you just eliminate 50% of your losses and increase your wins by 50%, how would you do? All right, game changer. That's what we're learning in trading 102 course is about the fundamentals of just the mentality of a trader. Right? Doesn't matter. I mean, we can use any system and make money trading, right? If you trade it properly. So what we're doing now is we're teaching execution, how to be successful with that strategy. A lot of guys have great. I look at a guy. I mean, that's another thing we'll be doing in the next couple weeks is we'll be going over all types of trader strategies. Right? They're like, oh, I only do this, this, and this. Right? And we're going to take those strategies and tear them apart and build them back up and be like, okay. And then we're going to implement very simple, steps that ensure that we only do the best trades in that scenario. Right? We don't want to trade the possible trades. We only want to trade the A trades. We call them A trades. They're the best possible trades at that time. That way, it's just you're not even you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. You're waiting for very simple confirmations, right? You don't go long unless there's a 1 hour green moon. Very simple, right? Saves you from all types of like long positions that you would have got killed on, right? And then when market condition changes, then you start going, well, shit, this market's really nice. I could do the 45-minute moon. Now we start adjusting to the market conditions. But you'll know how to do that because you'll actually be aware of it. That's the difference, right? Which makes trading a lot easier for you because once you're aware of it, you can make the adjustments for yourself. You're not like, um, you're not stuck on one thing going, oh, I wonder how that didn't work. I wonder why that didn't work, right? Now you're in a position where everything that you're doing, it's now in a position where you understand what you're doing, right? Which allows you to adjust, grow, and develop. And no matter what you see or what you learn or what you come across, right, you can develop that into a trade and go, well, that either works or it doesn't, but you'll know why, right? You're no longer flying blind, right? Which will then help you get out of emotions, right? It'll help you get out of your emotional trades. It'll help you get out of those scenarios. And that is really what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get away from the emotional trades, get away from the trades that, when you get into a trade, you don't know why you're in it, right? This is all to make trading systematic, make it, so you can rinse and repeat and you're not just in the wind, right? That changes the whole game. Once you can remove emotions, you can start pulling the trigger, making the date, getting the data. You become like like Joey C likes to say, AI. Just becoming just a machine, baby. All right, you just do what you're supposed to do. There's nothing, there's nothing else to it. You just do what you're supposed to do, and that's the beauty of it, man. That's how you start, right? But that all comes with building up a very simple system, right? So tomorrow we're gonna hop on and like I said, we'll see more moons and we'll see a lot more triggers tomorrow. Some days are like Wednesday. Like today, there was just the news or whatever was going on. Everybody just sat back and everyone's waiting for the markets to crash. Because that's what they've been told, right? Bitcoin's going to 20,000. You know, that's all they know, right? And then every day the sky's falling. Eesh. I don't know if they ever let that happen, but it's like they just want to it's okay for them because they just every time the market gives up they buy some space. They're just buying up land right now. But I mean it's the same old back in the day it's back a long time ago people would do the sky's falling. It's always falling. Right now you're just living in fear. It's the best time to start buying. But like I said, building from this area here, you'll learn to be in the worst conditions. And then when conditions get better, you'll adjust and make more money on those better conditions. And when they change, you'll just readjust back down. And you'll be like, oh, I could just short this whole market. And as this market goes up and down over the next 5, 10 years, you'll just be the person who's like, you don't care if it's good or bad. Whatever the money says. Doesn't matter. Yeah, just that's it. But you'll be confident in it because it's like that's how you learn. You trade based on where you came from, and that's why it's like I love teaching and doing the trading systems during terrible situations because it's like it really it to one it hones in the skills, but two it really allows you to really like test your ideology out, your systems out, your strategies, right? That's why this time around we're testing everybody's strategy. Like let's test them all. Let's see what works. Let's see if we can find something here, right? And then everyone starts to see that, you can piece that together, and it really like it just builds, right? The whole thing is to remove emotions, become systematic. Right? We use the 4 hour. I need the moon on here, right? Very simple steps. So all the trades that we do, they have fundamentally the same base, right? We need a 4 hour RSI headed up, a 4 hour moon for the other most of them. So one of them is just a 4 hour up and a 1 hour green moon, right? So they're all fundamentally in the same zone. They're trading with momentum and sentiment and value. That's it. And then you're doing high leverage on the 15, you're using the RSI above the 70. If you're doing just a regular 15 long, then you're just using lower leverage, then you just need a moon reset, right? But it's all using the same volume and sentiment, right now, um, settings, so that we're all seeing the same thing. And that's just because the market conditions are just the way they are right now. And we have to play by those rules, you know. And that's what you're learning. So as we go on, that's why I said, like, we got all year. This crypto's not going anywhere. It's only going to get better. And right now we're in the downside of it all, right? Where we can, get the shorts, build the longs. You take advantage of a lot of things during the down market. That's where people make a lot of money. And then when it starts running, you're like, oh shit. I mean, you'll be in trades where you're looking for 40, 50%. And all of a sudden it explodes for 100, 150, 200%. You're like, holy shit. It goes crazy. Like, Luke will tell you, Lucas will tell you, man, he's hit, he's had some crazy trades do $25,000. Like sometimes you just, if you're following what you're supposed to be doing, the grand slams will come. They're just going to happen. You're going to see that, right? You just got to be in the right position. So right now, we'll come back because we looked at this all day. We kind of everything that we were looking at yesterday came out to what we wanted. We just got to pull the triggers on those 4 hours. But the shorts are something that we're digging in right now. We'll start posting more of that, but it's just posting the 4 hour action. 4 hour ups, 4 hours down, 4 hour green moons. All right, 1 hour green moons. Staying in those upper time frames. Don't trade against the 1 hour, especially right now. Yeah, that market is, yeah. But that's like a step, man. That's just the basic, protects you from, what you're doing there. You can't go long unless you have a green moon. Like that's 100%. Yeah. And it was heading down at that time. Had you looked, you would have been like, you know what, maybe I should short this. And we'll see. But yeah, so that's where we're in, guys. Tomorrow, I'm thinking I'm gonna jump on during the midday as well, so I'll post that in there, and because we're gonna start seeing these candles are gonna be popping in. We got 10 minutes on the next candle, and wait for that to pop in, and then like I said, we'll start tracking these 2 to 4 hours. So I expect movement at the 5 a.m. to the opening of New York time. Um, we'll see what this next 10-minute candle is, but it looks like we're starting to find a little momentum here. There was that big last push down. Yeah. So you see here, that's what we're waiting on right there. You see the trading view right here on Doge? Yeah. So that's what we're waiting for, that push, and then from that push, we're just waiting for that pullback, which we're getting right now. So now that we have that, we went back, touched our lower level. So far, so good. So if you had an entry point on that lower level at 8951, what I say earlier, it's going to hit the 8551 area. There you go. Now you got a good entry. Now the ideal is that's the entry that you're going to focus on. Now we just need to see a green moon start to come around, that it ensures that. So now it's like we have a buying zone here, right? And so far the buying zone is sitting up right about here. But we can't buy anything until we get confirmation of value, right? And that's where, what's stopping us is we don't have any green moons yet. But no, 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 I can't do anything right now because, I don't have a green moon. Like, you got to keep in mind, right? So the trade that I want to do is a 4-hour RSI up, right? I don't have that yet, so I can't. I'm not even thinking about it long until I get that. The other thing I need is confirmation of value, which is a 1-hour moon, right? So I can't make a trade unless I have at least the value. So right now, I'm just waiting for this to, go up and down, up and down, up and down. And while it's doing that, it's going to get all these wicks out the way. And then once all the wicks, remember the reason why we have these steps of the 4-hour RSI up with a 4-hour moon or a 1-hour green moon is that it eliminates the wicks that would actually take us out of a trade, right? So right now, I got to have those, those steps set in so that I can even think about, making a trade, right? So I put my alert on my 3-hour. So I'm waiting for that to come in. Yeah, so it's just a waiting time. Yeah, yeah. How about tomorrow, man? And like I said, just post as you see, right? So watch for the 4-hour up and the 1-hour green moons. And we'll post. We're gonna start posting 1-hour green moons and the 4-hour RSI info. And those things right there we will center everything on, because as market conditions get better, the 1-hour green moons will become more relevant, and then we'll already have the trades that we want to do already built into our heads, and then we can just start adjusting the entries on those. All right. Makes sense, guys? How you feel, Joey? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just gonna wait on this. I got 6 minutes of this next 2 hour. Yeah, you good? Yeah, coffee time, baby. What's up, bang? Um, and I'm gonna put up. I got a couple calls on here. I gotta work through, but I'll go through the XRP pool for you. Uh, yeah, it's pretty basic.